The eternal ending, when the spiritual seeking ends. In early 2018, I went out of town for a solo retreat. I needed to get away. I needed a vision quest, guidance, a fresh start, some answers. I was in the cold plunge, my skin getting numb, but oddly it felt so good. I was relaxed, surrendered. I sank deep into it. I heard my intuition voice speak so clear, as if an invisible mouth was on my ear, dropping in sweet, serene guidance. Stay still. Stay in a little longer, it said. I did, and soon my head felt like it was melting open, my body completely numb. I was erased and became aware water, aware sky, aware trees, all big, wide, and vibrant. More dripped in my ear, the guidance I was after. Die before you die. That's all you have to do now, it said. The rest I'll keep to myself, but this short, simple, and direct phrase I took home with me, like a gold token. I searched this phrase online when I returned home and found a few articles and a YouTube video of a Muji satsang. I quickly learned in that first video that many people were dying in this way on purpose with the guidance of many different teachers and had been for hundreds of years. I found my teacher in that first video satsang, which led to other non-dual teachers as well, and that was the beginning of the end. I didn't think it through, as is common for me on this long and winding road that this spiritual questing has been. I didn't figure in how much it would change me, what it would do to my life, what the end would be like, what it would feel like, when it would be, how it would go, what opening this door really meant. I just followed the guidance that started as a seed in my heart, my precious gold token, and it led me to a whole new world of people already being with die before you die. I followed that phrase to satsang. It was like being tapped out, tapped on the shoulder, tapped out of the life that I had been living and how I had been living it. I didn't talk about it much with anyone. I just fell into it and kept it close to my heart. And I just kept going, one video after another, day after day, for years. I would often think in the beginning that maybe this is what people are yearning for when they feel like dying or are feeling suicidal yearning. Maybe when the soul calls out for this, it can be taken literally rather than as a symbol, as guidance home while still here, ever alive. Looking back farther a few years before I found Muji, I was going through a very hard time and was struggling with it, and it got pretty heavy, and I just couldn't bear it anymore, and I wanted to die. And soon after that dark night, I obviously made it through. I made a new friend, and he gave me a book, and it was from a non-duality teacher, and very similar to what I was receiving in satsang with Muji. And it helped me through that time. It got me through that time. And I can see now that this whispering was inevitable. It came for me then, and it came for me again, stronger this time. I thought I was seeking all this time, but it now appears I was the one being sought. And there is no going back. I started with a brain inside a skull, and now I feel like a skull inside a brain. A vision quest retreat led to a teacher like none other, and which led to more teachers and guides and more understanding and more undertaking. And now it's over. And if I'm honest, I want another vision quest for guidance, another golden token. I went so deep facing the end of this 35-year quest that I got depressed again. But this time, no one gifted me a magic book. A new teacher didn't appear. Guidance was silent in my ear. Nothing and no one there. No direction for my path. I listened. I waited. Nothing. I cried and cried for all the nothing. The journey is over. The quest over. The only thing I could feel was depression. I thought that was the bottom. So I sat with it and sat with it and waited for it to pass, waited for it to change. I gave it its time. I felt it. I felt it as much as I could. And I realized that that wasn't the bottom. The depression was like a lid. It was like a cap on something else. And if I didn't look underneath, I would never get through this. So I lifted it up and looked underneath, and I found an extremely large amount of fear. So many fears. The biggest fear on top that wanted my attention was the fear of not being loved by God. I couldn't bear the thought of what I would do if I stopped feeling God's love in my heart. If I stopped feeling loved by God, if there was something I did that was so bad that could make God stop loving me. I cried and cried at this fear, at this possibility, and I mourned all the nothing that God has to love. And I'm startled by a loud crash in that moment. One of my favorite regular visiting birds flew hard into my window that I was looking out. I ran out and held him for a few moments while he disappeared in my hands, erased. And I cried and cried, and I knew it was over. The spiritual seeking was over. The sweet, serene voice in my ear is love itself. And she's all there is. And she does what she does. And I was never on a quest. I was the one being quested by love. And I just had to love back. The end is the hardest part. No one talks about the end during all the fun experiences and spiritual adventures. We talk about what we've learned and how we're growing, what we feel and think and see and know, what we are into and where we are, where we're going next. And then we get to a point where we say one thing a million different ways. We hear one thing a million different ways. We feel that one thing a million different ways. Until we see it in just a way, we know it in a way that departs us, that literally departs us from the journey. It takes us off of that track of searching and seeking and yearning and desiring and wanting that union, that completion, that wholeness, that feeling, that knowing. And that is the end. The end is the hardest part because it illuminates the spiral we've been on, and that is overwhelming to digest. That is more than I can chew in an afternoon or two. And the spiral always brings you back to where you started, wiser than before, but still just there in the midst of the choice that arises to keep living life from a place on the spiral or to live life from the middle of the spiral. This transition from the end to the middle is the hardest art, to heart it all, to be here with all of this and the raw softness of the feeling heart without protecting or distracting or dissociating from the eternal knowing, nowing through life, is living, breathing art that looks different on all of us, playing out our unending, eternal nows.